hopefully people,
Oh, started. I'll stop him. There we go. All right.
okay. Dave, Rich, and Tim, you guys want to turn your microphone on? Okay, there's Tim,
Hey,
Hey guys.
Dave,
Yep. Am I messy, Scout?
Hey, this is Rich. Sorry, the dog was barking. I left it on mute.
that's all right.
all right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and start recording, and this is going to be dealing with the 1908 Washington Franklins. We're going to be going over the different characteristics of the types for the 2 cent and 3 cent. And Heidi, if you'll go ahead and start with type 1 and the details.
There we go.
Okay. Now, these are all out of Paul Schmid's book called The Expert's Book. A very good book to have in your library. Not only does it show these full-size pages with the next page being a list of their features, but it also helps identifying fakes, how to identify fakes, what to look for of most all the coils. But we'll get started here. First off, when you're looking at, although this type 1 shows it as rotary press, when you're looking at, oh, Heidi, we still have the type 1A details.
Oh, my apologies. I opened the wrong one. I'll open the right one. Here we go.
Okay, and we need a type 1. There we go.
All right.
Oh, I got I need type 1 details.
I just hit the thing. Here we go.
There you go. Okay. First off, if you have a flat plate printed stamp for the 2 cent stamp, it is always going to be type 1 or type 1A. And type 1A, which we will get to later, there's only 2 stamps that are type 1A. But for the most part, if you have a flat plate printed stamp, 2 cent stamp, it's going to be type 1. You'll see that there are a whole list of features. Now, a lot of these features exist on other types as well, to some degree, but what you really need to pay attention here is the unique features that are listed on the page. For type 1, notice number 2, it says that the top line of the toga rope and the outline of the toga button are thin, sometimes broken. And then the shading lines of the toga rope are noticeably thicker at the bottom. If you have a flat plate printed stamp and you have those features, it's going to be type 1. There are other characteristics. Again, if you look at number 5, they talk about the different the lines, the shading lines. But the problem using that feature is that not all flat plate printed stamps are equally printed, I guess. There are light shadings, there are heavy, and it can be difficult to see that, especially if cancel is obstructing the view of that. So number 2 is pretty much what you should be using for a flat plate printed 2 cent stamp. And if we can go to type 1A and type 1A details,
All right. Um, There we go.
okay. Again, number 2 provides the major difference. The toga rope, the toga button, the lines are more uniform, they're stronger. They almost appear as if they're recut. I don't think I have seen a light shaded type 1A. It's a very distinctive color. They're all very strongly printed. But again, this feature number 2, with the very strong toga rope and toga button, that is the unique feature for type 1A. And it has to be a flat plate printing. There are some of the offsets where the toga rope and button appear very strong. So it has to be flat plate, and it has to have those strong toga rope and button. And another point about flat plate and rotary printings that are different from offset. You should be able to feel the difference between flat plate and offset, or rotary and offset. The ink is raised, it's been engraved, it's a raised ink, whereas in the offsets, the printing is very flat. The stamp feels very smooth. So if you're not sure, if you think you have a type 1A, but it also happens to be type 7, and the offsets, they can look very similar, and they're very often confused. Just rub your finger over the stamp. You will feel the ridges for the printing in the type 1A or in any flat plate or rotary stamp, whereas you will not feel any printing in the offsets. Any questions so far?
Well, I have one for you. I have used a very thin aluminum foil. You could set it on the stamp and you could rub it back and forth and you can actually get impressions. on
That's
some of
correct.
it.
That's
And
correct.
That works really well.
Yes, and I have the thickness here someplace, but it's a much thinner than what you would buy at the store in a roll of aluminum foil.
Right.
But you will not get an impression if you try rubbing that over an offset.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a good way to check if a guideline is genuine or not. Sometimes guidelines for line pairs are faked. So certainly use the aluminum foil, or check the stamp under magnification with, a light glancing off the stamp at a very shallow angle. You can usually see the raised ink. Let's go to type 2.
There we go.
Okay, type 2 is strictly used for rotary press printing. And and let me see which number is that.
Excuse me.
On a rotary press printing, you see number 1, it talks about a single shading line in the top fold of the ribbon at the left and in the bottom fold in the ribbon at the right. although type 1 and 1A are very similar here, this is for a rotary printed stamp. If you have just that single line in either of those ribbons or in both of those ribbons, it's going to be type 1. The other important feature is number 6, which is unique to type 2. The bottom two hairs, the lines in the hair are different lengths. And the bottom line is probably, I would guess, I'm going to say 90% of the length of the top one, but it's always shorter than the one right above it. This is a feature that you also have to watch out for. When I get to type 3, I'll mention this, but there is another feature for type 2 that is not mentioned in the book, and you may want to write this down.
Do you have a pencil I can use? Thank you.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, this feature is not always visible, but when it is, the frame line that goes around the perimeter of the stamp is made up of parallel lines. It's a series of parallel lines. It's not always visible. Sometimes the printing is so heavy that you can't see them. But in lighter printings, if it's type 2, it should have parallel lines in the frame line around the perimeter. Now, again, we are talking about a rotary press printing type 2. These features, number 1 and number 6, and then the extra one that I just mentioned, which isn't always visible, are the only things you need to use to determine type 2. All the other features that they list are available to some degree in the other types. So let's go to type 3 now. Hey, Debbie.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Can't see me
Okay.
though, right? Hold on.
We have,
Okay.
there you go.
There we go.
Okay. Type 3. Differences in the type 3, if you'll get, and again, go to number 1. We're talking about rotary printed stamp. This time it's going to have 2 lines in the upper left fold in the ribbon. And on the right, it's going to have 2 lines in the bottom fold of the ribbon. On number 6, the bottom line now is slightly longer than the line above it. These 2 features will tell you right away, this is a type 3. Now, on the difference between type 2 and 3 are these lines, and sometimes, especially if you have a 492 and somebody's trying to tell you that it's 491, these lines, they'll try to scrape away these lines, make the bottom hairline slightly shorter, and they'll probably try to get rid of the extra lines in the ribbon folds. Always just get yourself familiar with what a type 1 or 2 looks like in those areas. The paper is typically very smooth. It's typically fairly white. Whereas if somebody is scraping the lines, you can tell some kind of alteration has been made. If you're still not sure, turn the stamp over, hit it with some watermark fluid, and it will probably show a thin
Curious.
in those areas.
The dog's curious.
Okay, and the other feature about type 3 that I want to mention that is not listed here, so you'll want to write this down, is the frame line on a type 3, when it's visible, it's not always visible, but when it is visible, will be made up of a series of cross hatching or X's, just very tight X's that make up the frame line. On very heavy prints, you won't see it, but if the print is light enough, you'll see a series of X. Now, you may not see it all the way around, but if you see it down in one corner or just a part of a line, that's all you need to determine that it's type 3. If it has the features of type 2 and it has this cross hatching, it's an altered type 3 that somebody tried to make type 2. So that's an important feature to keep note of on the type 3 and type 2 stamps. Okay, let's get into the offset printings. Type 4. Okay. Now, last Zoom meeting, Andrew Kelly had a nice little cheat sheet for telling the differences between the different offsets. The 2-cent ones can be, some of them can be confusing. And if they're sent to the APS, it's typically, you could have a very expensive type 7 being confused with other stamps, or even a type 5 being confused. But on type 4, the easiest ID on type 4 is the toga button. It forms a backward D, then an I, then a forward D. This is an absolute indication that it is a type 4 stamp. Now, and that's only for 2 stamps, 526, the perforated version, and 532, the imperforate version. You'll also have to recognize that the printing for 526 and 532 looks, the ink, the whole printing has its own unique look to it. It's a shade lighter. I've not seen a 526 that looks anywhere near the other stamps. If you get a genuine 526 or 532, keep it aside, use it as reference. But the printing itself is it's a different shade of Carmine. There's in Andrew's cheat sheet, he starts off with type 4. The line in the left 2 is thin or broken. That's number C. Oh, there we go. The dots on the nose, there are no dots missing. And there are 2 vertical rows of dots above the mouth on the upper lip. Now, you'll see that some of the other types, it states same as type 4, same as type 5, whatever. But we're using that as our baseline. So the DID confirms type 4. When you get down to type 5, type 5 is pretty much the same as type 4, except the color is different and the toga button doesn't have the two Ds being formed inside the button itself. This is pretty much the only way to confirm the difference between 4 and 5 and 5 and the others. 5 is the most difficult type one, the type to figure out. So as long as you've got 5 lines and you have the other features of type 4, and it also has to be a different color than a genuine 526, you've got type 5. And 527 and 533 are some reasonably better stamps with the offsets. When you get to type 5, and for the rest of the types, the toga button is the same, but type 5A, you're missing dots in the nose. And this is a most telling feature for type 5A. Color's very close to type 5, but this is the first place you look. You look at the nose. If it's missing those 2 dots, you've got a type 5A. When you get down to 6 and 7, the same as type 6. Not same as type 4. The type 6, the 2, the center line is extremely heavy, more so than what he shows here. And it is different than the right 2. The right 2 does not have that heavy center line. When you get down to type 7, you basically have, again, the same features as type 4 and 5, but the 2s, the center line on the 2s are the same, but they're not broken. They're complete. And you have 3 vertical rows on the upper lip. So I would recommend you can either go with the book, the expert's book, but this is a nice little sheet that Andrew has put together for distinguishing the offset types. And again, if you have that thin piece of aluminum foil, use it. You will not get an impression if you try placing this foil over the stamp and try rubbing. You will not get an impression of the stamp. When we go down to the 3 cent, you only have 2 types in the offset. Type 3, can be very hard to distinguish type 3. Well, you know what? Let's go to type 1 in the 3 centers first.
Okay.
And we'll come back to the type 3 and 4 on this a little bit later.
Okay.
Okay.
Almost there. Whoop, went too far. Nope,
Are all offsets perf 11?
there we are.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing, there are some differences in size. I'm not sure. I think everybody here, Danny, do you have the template that I made?
No,
Okay, I can get with you later, but
Yep.
An offset printing also is a different size from opposite frame lines. They are different sizes than the flat plate printings. So if you have the template or you have a flat plate stamp that you can place over a suspected offset printing, if you cut the corners off at the stamp, and place it on top. A flat plate printing will typically be larger in one direction or both. But I believe the expert's book even gives some dimensions for some of the offsets if you think you might have an offset stamp, one of the rare ones at least. But you pretty much need to be able to measure in tenths of a millimeter in order to make those measurements. So most, probably 99% of the rulers out there will not tell you whether something is 20.9 or 22 millimeters or 21 millimeters. So, but the offset printings are a different size than flat plate. In type 1 can be flat plate or rotary. Again, the line, the toga rope, very thin, very weak, here's broken, and the fifth line from the left is either gone. This states that it's entirely missing. You also want to notice that number 4, the length of the hairlines behind the ear. The bottom hairline again is shorter than the hairline right above it. That's really important on the difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 2 will only be rotary press printings. But if we could go to the next type 2, you'll notice here on number 4, it's kind of hard to see on this picture, but there is a flat plate type 2. It's 484, but the line, the bottom line, is usually for flat plate. It is longer, not a whole lot longer. But in the rotary printings, it's extremely long, sometimes twice the length of the line right above it. The toga rope has gotten a lot stronger. And the book is mentioning I think that those two features are going to be pretty much the only features you really need to look at for type 2. If a stamp is a rotary press printing, and it's not the Imper 484, you're going to see that number 4 feature where the bottom line is much longer and the toga rope is stronger. Okay, let's go ahead to the offset printings. And if you could bring up that sheet again that
Okay.
Andrew had. Okay. Type 3, toga button. The second and the fourth line are complete. And there is a distinct line between the P and O of postage. The fifth line is missing in the toga rope. The last one, the outer oval complete. I'm not sure I always agree with that one, but Andrew is the expert on the offsets. The P and O in postage is not always easy to see on an offset printing. offset printings are, especially the 3 cents, the violet or purple ink didn't always print real well. And that feature can be hard to pick out. So try to use the toga button and the 5th line in the toga rope as your identifying features. If you can see a line between the P and O of postage, great. It's just that you just can't always see it. In type 4 line, the 2nd and 4th line are broken. The P and the O has a white space between them. And the toga rope has that 5th line has been redrawn in. Or maybe it just wasn't taken out. But again, the P and the O are not always easy to see with the purple ink, but yet the toga button and the toga rope features, you should be able to make those out on most all of your type 4 3-cent offset printings. Any questions so far? Any questions at all? Does anybody have? Yeah, Scotty.
No, good stuff.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at my type 3s right now. And
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm not seeing any of those toga rope lines on, I've got six copies here and I'm just not really seeing,
You're not seeing a missing line?
I'm not seeing any of the dashes really on any of them. Maybe it's just the quality of the plates or whatever. Certainly I see them all on the type 4s that I have in front of me.
Okay.
So, but I guess for the most part, okay, here's one where I can see that's missing. But yeah, they're pretty light, so it's really, and so that could be one of my indicators, actually, if they're not, I mean, if the plate's worn or whatever.
Right. And the offset plates wore out very quickly. They were not an engraved plate. Plates were made completely different. The ink that they used wore out the type of plates that they were using to print the stamps very quickly. A lot of plates were used for the offset printings. So on the other ones that you were mentioning, Dave, can you see the difference in the P and O or at the toga button?
Yeah, that the P&Os on mine are quite obvious which is interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, the toggle buttons aren't always obvious on these. But the P and the O on all the ones I looked at, I had that on the type 3s, I had that line between them. And the 4s I looked at did not. They had that
Okay.
gap.
Would it help to look at it with a loop?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I always recommend looking at it at 10 power if you have it. Better, more if your magnifying glass or your scope allows.
Yeah, I use I mean I have a loop, but at my other desk, I'm at my office desk right now. My stamp desk is in my bedroom, and there I've got a digital microscope that I use and
Okay.
bring it in. So that was a good buy. That was a real good buy for me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've used a digital microscope sometimes when I've had to look at altered type 3 stamps that somebody tried to make a type 2. And,
Right.
You can actually see a scraped area when you're looking at it under 50 or more power.
Right.
So by any chance, did anybody have any problem stamps that they hadn't been able to identify and maybe made a file that we can put up on the screen?
Most of my issues, and as my kids say, I have more issues than National Geographic, but most of my issues,
I gotta remember that one.
it's yours, feel free to use it. So, it's funny that the three kids use different ones. One says Vogue, the other one says National Geographic, and the other one says Reader's Digest. So, but anyways, and if somebody's in the room and says issues, they'll all yell out, "Dad's got issues." So, I'm kind of proud of that. So anyways, my biggest issues are the color identification. They drive me nuts. I just want to burn them all. And so and also well, not so much with these, with the 2s and the 3s, but the later on the watermarking. So I've tried different things. I've tried tears. And so the other thing I'm trying right now is to do complementary colors behind it. I'm trying to rig that up to see if that will help as well.
What I've done, I stopped at the local tile store and picked up flat glossy 4x4 by 4 inch tiles in different colors. And if I need to do a complementary color behind the stamp, or even try the same color, those 4x4 tiles look
Nice.
great.
Yeah, I went to the art store last week and then I picked up some nice colored cardstock, and my wife just cut them out for me, and I've got some acetate that I'm putting over it. But the acetate came in a roll, so you cut it and it's a roll. So I'm currently flattening them in my 4th bureau book right now to see how it'll be tomorrow. But
Okay.
to put that over the paper, and I may just try some junk stamps on top of them too. So
Yeah, with the Washington Franklins, some of the colors, a lot of the colors, I guess, you have so much atmospheric damage, environmental damage. The inks sulfurize, they turn darker or change colors. It's really hard sometimes to pick out whether you have a deep brown versus violet brown, or dark carmine versus lake, something like that. The White's Encyclopedia of Colors is a big help, but the best thing you can have is certified or known genuine examples of the color that you're trying to match.
right.
So even White's book, if you let that thing out in the light too long, the colors are going to change.
Yeah, I actually bid on one the other day and got outbid on it. So the volume 1.
How much did that go for?
I think it went for 185.
Okay, that was for just volume 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About what I would expect volume 1 to go for. Volume 1 and 2 together tend to go for around 450 or 500, even though I've seen some people sell them and try to sell them for 900. That's just exorbitant. You
3
can't-
volumes, right?
There's more than that. Well, there's volume 1 and 2 are in the same book.
Yeah, that's the one I bid on the other day.
Yeah, volume 4 are in a second book. Volume 5 is Gums and Papers. That's in its own book, and it doesn't come with a slipcase, by the way. Just the first 2 sometimes were bought with slip cases. And there is a volume 6 and maybe a volume 7, but I don't know what they are, and I've never seen them on the market. I think Tila,
I've never seen them either.
yeah, I think Tila has copies of them.
I've seen all 3 of the volumes for sale for $7.50, and so I'm not, you know, I can't buy that. I can't even hide that from my wife.
Oh,
So
I'll tell you the same thing I told Tim. The cheapest thing I bought for Reds, because Reds seem to be the one that comes up in the Washington Franklin series the most. This book here, I don't know if you don't
what
have
is
my.
that?
Can you guys see this?
No.
It is the 10-cent stamp of the small banknote issue of 1890. And it's really in the back, there is a color guide. It's actually 2, one for 219D and one for 220, but it has all the roses, carmines, lakes,
Oh,
deep
yeah.
carmines. And it also comes with this handy little thing right here. You can see the holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you put one over your stamp and one over the color that you want to compare it to. And it really helps you focus in over on the color.
Wow.
I only paid $35 for this on eBay. I don't think that people realize that these have the color guides in the back. This is also from the Pittsburgh Philatelic Society. And they are the same ones that made the Scott Specialized color guide. It's also about this size. It has other guides in it, but to me, these are the hardest ones to see.
Can you post that in the Facebook page? Take a copy and post it there so I can.
I can take a copy and post it there, and look out for it and see if you can find you a good copy. I think one of the other guys found one. Tim, was that you or maybe Jim?
No,
Found
I
it?
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got it.
at this point, so I just finished up 25 years of scouting, last 6 with Metal to the Pedal, and I just picked up my collection again after a 12-year hiatus. And so at this point, I'm just and Steve knows I'm trying to find the reference material. I'm building my reference library right now, and then and plus I've got, I don't know if you've seen some of my comments before, but I had like about a 6-year unsupervised spending spree on eBay back in the aughts. And so I'm trying to get all that excess material moved out of my house. So, yeah,
Get in line.
undisciplined and unsupervised. So,
Good job.
But
yeah,
we all wish we were when it comes to stamps.
yeah. So, but now I'm just trying to get rid of all of my excess stuff, get it all out of the house. I could just concentrate on what I want to concentrate on. And so I have a whole book of RPO from Maryland covers, and I got to figure out how I'm going to try to sell those. But it's a nice book, and and I thought I was going to go after them, but no, I'm not gonna.
Is
So
it a book on the?
no, it's a binder full of covers,
Oh, very cool.
annotated covers from a bunch of different railroads in Maryland. and
Hmm.
cities. So
There is a group on Facebook that specializes in special markings, railroad markings.
mhm.
Look for, I think Caleb started it. There's not a lot of activity in it, but there are
Mhm.
people who are especially interested in those. Look for that.
Yeah,
If some of them have fancy cancels, there's the group that Mark and I have.
sure.
But
That's
Back-
the other book I have to buy is the what's that, Simmons or something like that, that cancels and
Simpsons,
Simpsons. So I was close.
I have an extra one of those, by the way. I didn't realize, but I bought it twice.
So, well, I'll be happy to buy it from you. Like I said, I'm building my library up, so.
Okay. All right. I'll check pricing on it and try to find out what I paid for it. And then I can turn around and give you a price, hopefully recoup what I put into it.
Yeah,
Dave, do you have any of Joel's or Armstrong's books?
I do not. I have Schmidt's How to Detect book, that's a
Right.
good book, that Schmidt's, how to find the, altered stamps and stuff like that. I have that. I've got the, macaroni or whatever it's called.
Macarelli?
Yeah. Macarelli,
Making me hungry.
yeah. So I've got that, and that's the main book I've been using lately, and then I have an old iPad on my desk too, and I go into Swedish, whatever that's called, and yeah, so nope, I don't have, I just have the one on the right, so the Armstrong one and Joel's too.
Yeah, the Armstrong one's really a nice book.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great
and
story, great
Max-
stories behind the stamps themselves.
and that's
Max
what I enjoy.
Joel also has written some nice books on the early 20th century material. His name is Max Joel, Johl.
Yeah, I've seen him referenced. I'm reading the Fourth Bureau right now, and he's referenced quite heavily in that. So
Hey,
I actually picked up, believe it or not, a couple of my reference books in a used bookstore. I picked them up for like $2 a piece back in the aughts. So I don't remember which one, but by golly, I'm gonna find it.
yeah,
Hey, Stephen, you mentioned the Type 4 526 has a unique shade. Is that
yes.
a Carmine Rose?
I'd have to look in the catalog, see what the actual color is, but it's a very light, distinctive shade. Is that what they call it, Carmen Rose, in the book?
I think so. But I'm pulling mine out and I'm seeing some different shades, but they all have the same marker as the Type 4. Maybe some are just heavier than others.
Well, they call 526 Carmen in the catalog,
Okay.
but the printing is distinctly different. The color is a little bit lighter. It's just a different color Carmen, and the same with 532.
532 being the imperf.
Correct. Yeah, you can usually pick those out without even looking at markers. So,
No one's asked a question, but I wanted to mention about the foil, finding the super thin foil that's easy to pick up. You can get off of Amazon packs of the candy foil. It's foil that you use to wrap around candy. It's very, very thin. It's the thinnest I've found. And you can use it to make impressions with. And it comes in little squares like this. So it's actually ideal for our purposes.
yeah, there's another. I had gotten a few sheets. I think originally the Casalis gauge was sold with foils, but apparently there are scientific equipment companies that will sell a very thin foil. I don't know how much you have to buy, but I think I initially had probably, I don't know, about 10 or 15 squares, but you can reuse it. You don't have to just use it once and throw it away. You just smooth it out flat and wait for the next stamp that you have to try it on. So it's definitely reusable.
Very thin. I picked up my confectionery foil at like Hobby Lobby, and I just use a pencil eraser, the pink to soft.
Yeah. And it is, as long as you don't tear it, but you can use your finger and it'll give you an impression. You don't have to rub that hard.
Yeah, be careful with that. I used my fingernail one time and tore a hole right in that foil. It wasn't that
Yeah.
hard, but it was just sharp enough that it caught it.
Yeah.
I can see your expression now.
Yeah, like.
Hello, Jim. Unmute yourself, Jim. You're muted.
Yep, muted. Hi,
There we go.
Steve.
There you go. How you doing, Jim?
I'm very good, Steve. Thank you for teaching me more.
Jim and I are in the same local club together,
Where do y'all live?
Cincinnati.
Okay.
So,
The guy who started me with stamp collecting back in 1966 moved to Cincinnati. He was from there. So I still have my first stamp, Japanese flower, but just a definitive flower
and
stamp.
who was that?
His name was Bob Smith, Robert Leroy Smith. He worked for Pringles.
Oh, okay.
He was a scientist and he helped develop Pringles, believe it or not. So, but yeah, nice guy. But he's the one who started me. Guy named Bob Smith.
Okay.
I want to explore your cabinet back there. Looks like you've got a lot of interesting stamp stuff right behind you. Yeah.
Who
Lot
you
to go
speaking-
through. I don't collect much international, but I got all kinds of them that I've just picked up in the past from my father and everything.
I don't do any international, and I've
Yeah.
got part of this bookcase and then two other in the back that's just full of US stuff. You can accumulate a lot if you're not careful.
I gave every bit of my international to except my first stamp to scouting family. So let them know. So
Nice.
Hey, Steve, I got a question. Where do you go to see the past once the Zoom meetings we've done? Are they available?
Heidi?
Yeah, there is a YouTube page. So the ones I've been on that I hosted, I know there was one I wasn't on. We've recorded two. This will be the second one. There's a YouTube page. It's called the Washington Franklin Stamp Club that I created, and I put these recordings on there, and then I will share the link in the group, in the Facebook group where we post the Zoom links. So I'll share the link in there again and just let you all know when I get this uploaded. It'll be tomorrow, probably tomorrow night before I get it uploaded to YouTube, but I will share it when it's there.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah, of course.
Also, to let everybody know, Andrew Kelly has paid for the name for a .com called WashingtonFranklin.com.
Cool.
So we will be putting up a lot of research material, this type of material describing the types, possibly exhibits, anything else that dealing with just the Washington Franklins. So that is a progress in work, and we'll let you know when that
Good idea.
becomes available.
Good idea.
We keep having these. We can link, he can add a link to the YouTube page as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
be out there for as long as we want it.
yeah. He's planning on, I don't know if you guys know that Andrew is quite, he's getting published. He's written a couple articles now for the USSS Journal. Is a very accomplished researcher. So, and he also expertises for APS. I got him started about 6 months to 6 to 9 months ago, starting expertising with APS. So very knowledgeable. If you have questions, he's a good guy to ask. Keep him in, on Messenger. If he doesn't know the answer, he knows where to find it as well.
So you,
Heidi was the one that Andrew did that you didn't record, you weren't available?
I think so. Was that who hosted
Yeah.
last? Yeah.
Michael
we-
Where do
did.
you go? Is his available?
Michael Cortese
Yeah.
is the one who recorded for us on that one. And you may just want to ask him, I'm not sure where exactly it is off the top of my head, but Michael and Charles Epting host a YouTube channel or host a Zoom meetings called Conversations with the Philatelist. And they will bring on an individual and have an hour-long conversation, or they go back and forth talking about a particular subject. So very interesting, very informative. Michael is president of Noble Spirit, who is on eBay. And Charles Epting is, I think, CEO or president of one of the major auction houses.
HR
But-
Harm.
Harmer, that's it, yeah.
I bought a
So
lot from him.
both young guys, very knowledgeable, very successful, but Michael was good enough to record the second meeting for us.
If we're able to get a copy of that, I'd be happy to upload it to the YouTube channel so we can have them all in the
Yeah,
same.
it's a great episode.
I'd-
Yeah,
That was a
you,
good show.
Yeah, Andrew was showing a fair part of his exhibit as part of the presentation.
Right.
But can you, when you're on a YouTube channel, is it possible just to record what you're watching and pull it over, or can you just copy a link, or what you need to do, Heidi?
If he has a link to it, it probably is somewhere that I can download it and then I will upload it to our YouTube channel.
Heidi, I uploaded it to YouTube to my page
Oh,
because I
good.
shared it with a fellow collector of mine. Let's talk afterwards, but I do have it that we could upload to the YouTube. I've
Good.
already uploaded it on mine, but I have it, and it's certainly something I think that needs to be out there, so.
Great.
Okay.
We'll do that.
What is
Yeah,
your page,
I do
Scotty?
have it.
Scotty, what is your page?
It's not a page, it's just personal YouTube, but
Oh.
let me look and see while we're chatting here if I can find it, and maybe I can share it in our chat.
All right.
While
So just
I
give me a second.
While he does that, I'll tell you a little funny. When I created the YouTube channel for this group, I said, well, I'm going to call this the club. And we often call this era Wash Frank stamps. And so I named it the Wash Frank Club. And then I took a step back and I
Yeah.
read it and I went, oh. So now it is spelled out, the Washington Franklin Club.
Good call.
Yeah. I thought,
Was
oh,
it
people don't know about
Washington Franklin Stamp Club or Club?
I'll
Step.
have to look.
I looked it up. It's got Stevens' template as a icon.
Okay,
I found it.
Full
I'm
beans.
gonna share it in the chat.
Heidi, the book that you had up, did you say
is
that's still available for $30?
This 2-cent stamp of the small banknote issue of 1890, this book,
Yeah, I have a copy, but it's like 50.
I paid 35 for mine on eBay.
Okay.
I think Tim,
Tila was looking for one. If you can get him one or call it to his attention, he would need one right now.
who is?
Tila.
Oh,
You-
Tila.
Okay.
I didn't know he was looking for one, but I will tell him if I see any on eBay.
Would appreciate that.
Okay.
If you guys go down and click on the chat button at the bottom, I've uploaded the link that's on my YouTube of the meeting with Andrew and the offsets. So
Thank
if you can see it in the chat and you click on it, you'll find that.
Thank you, Scotty.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now
Is
I
that-
gotta figure out how to get
Would
it
that
down.
work for you, Heidi?
I don't know if I can download it from his YouTube channel.
I can,
But-
I can share it to you after too as well.
Yeah, if he can share me the actual recording, then that I can upload.
Let me
Okay.
see.
I'll work.
Michael, thank you for hosting tonight. You want to kick us off?
Oh,
Absolutely.
I thought it was me.
It's already taken off. Somebody
Michael,
got
thank
it.
you for
Great.
hosting tonight. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you.
I happened to inadvertently start the recording. You hear that? It's Scotty's recording. I was checking it.
Yep, that's it.
We all did that, I think.
At
It
least you
looks
got
like
it
it was
now.
well attended.
Danny,
Yes,
okay, if you could send me, I go by Stephen Robert on Facebook. If you could
Okay.
send me a message, I'll get with you about what the template looks like.
okay,
You can either make your own or get one from me. But
okay, that sounds good.
yeah, just send me a message on Messenger.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay,
Well, folks, shipyard comes awfully early in the morning, so I'm gonna,
All right.
I'm already an hour past my bedtime, so thank you for inviting me, and I learned a lot, and looking forward to working with you all in the future.
all right. Dave,
All right. Good night, y'all.
good
Good
night.
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 Yeah, my husband's going to
Debbie,
bed.
how you doing? I haven't heard you.
All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but you haven't spoken up yet.
I have not, just taking notes and taking it all in.
Okay. Were you able to catch from the very beginning?
I got home really late today and I wasn't able to prepare.
Okay. When did you actually drop in? Do you remember where we were?
It was Heidi, what was it, 5 minutes after 9?
It was pretty early in, and we were probably on the type 3s, maybe type 2, type.
Okay, did you get the note about what is not in the book as far as features for type 2 and type 3? You remember that?
No,
Okay. And Jim, I don't think, were you in early
Yeah.
on?
I came in
Okay.
just a few minutes after 9.
Okay. Debbie, on type 2 for the 2 cent, you might want to write this down.
okay. Okay,
Something that is not in the book is the frame line itself. When it's visible,
Is this
The
correct,
frame-
Steve? Does
there
this
you
help?
go.
oh, thank you.
Yes, that's exactly it.
I created this one and can you double check that, Steve? Is everything correct here? Type 1, 2, and 3 with the solid, parallel, and X's.
Yeah. Yeah, but you may want to put a circle around the hairlines behind the ear, because those are important features of type 1 and 2 and 3.
Correct. Yep, and you can actually see them rather visibly here, but you're correct. Okay,
Thank you,
Okay.
Scotty.
you're welcome.
I'm sorry, Stephen, I didn't catch your point, though. What's missing?
Oh,
Show him
What was
again.
yep,
Yeah. Okay, on type 1, you have a solid frame line. All type 1s are going to be like that. The frame line around the stamp. On type 2, you can especially see it at the bottom frame line. The frame line is made up of parallel lines.
mm-hmm,
On type 3, you can see indications of it, but the frame line is made up of cross hatching or X's. And if you were to look at underneath the E and N of cents, probably you'd have to look at it under magnification. You would
mhm.
see what looks like a bunch of X's. Now, for type 2 and type 3, it's not always visible. Sometimes it's an over inked stamp. sometimes it just doesn't show up. But if it does show up, those are indications of the two different types that cannot be altered. So where it's possible to alter a type 3 to make it look like type 2, if you can see the frame lines has the cross hatching, it's type 3, regardless of what they're trying to tell you about the ribbons and the hair behind the ears. So those are two features that are not mentioned very often at all in the literature. But you know, the people who expertise the Washington Franklins, they know of this feature, and probably it's not mentioned because you know, it's, although it can't be altered at all, it basically makes the expert look like they know what they're talking about.
Thank you.
That's cool, Scotty. I'd love a link to that too.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be nice to put up with not only on the website, but in the YouTube, if we could add that to
Sure.
one of the videos.
Oh,
So,
we have this video now because we are still recording.
oh, are we? Okay.
Now, would you like for me to turn it off?
Yeah, let's go ahead and turn it off.
All right.